I feel like we need to talk about it because it is the biggest story right now for national reporters with Baltimore Ravens football. And it's that they added quarterback Diego Pavia, but then also I want to talk about that they added quarterback Joe Fagnano. And at first it was they were both going to work out for rookie minicamp, which is one of the earlier ones for Baltimore, so they had some more flexibility there. But then they just ended up signing both of them to undrafted free agent contracts. And essentially you get them under the books, you get them under your control, or you could just let them go pretty easily. And so you're going to let them battle it out for the QB3. And look, people may say the QB3 position is not important. I believe it is. The Ravens used 3 QBs last year, and with a guy like Lamar Jackson, who has had some injury issues throughout his career, a guy like Tyler Huntley, who I think himself has also dealt with some injuries throughout his career, I think it's very important that you have a strong QB3 in place. And Cooper Rush, who actually was the QB2, ironically, at first, he was not that last year, and he was a poor fit in this system. The reason why you have to love what both Diego Pavia and Joe Fagnano, what they can both bring to the table, as they provide more versatility to be able to play in your Lamar Jackson-centric system that caters to quarterbacks with at least some mobility. And it's you can have a little bit more flexibility. At first with Greg Roman, you needed a rushing quarterback in there. As you shifted to Tom Monken and then now to Declan Doyle, the dependency on the mobility is not as high as it was 4 years ago in Baltimore. But I still think this offense flows better when the read option is a threat and when the rollout is still a threat. And that is why this offense did not skip a beat when Huntley started his 2 games last year, and why when he came in against the New England Patriots, he was fine and was still producing at a high level in this offense, that being and Tyler Huntley being a focal point of that. And so I think both Joe Fagnano and Diego Pavia can bring intangibles that can make them really, really strong QB3s. You sign them both to standard UDFA contracts. And look, everyone is talking about Diego Pavia. But these two are going to battle it out for QB3. Joe Fagnano is going to have a case for QB3 as well. And because he came from UConn and because he doesn't have the Heisman finish of a Diego Pavia, that doesn't mean that he can't be a strong NFL backup quarterback. And as I mentioned, obviously Pavia's got the resume. He was a Heisman finalist last year at Vanderbilt, really turned that program around, made them one of the best programs in college football last year, one of the best teams in the sport. But it was some of the character concerns, I think, that some teams saw, coupled with a shorter frame that made him a little bit less NFL ready. And the Ravens thought, look, he's there. Why not try him on an undrafted free agent contract? And that is what I love about this Baltimore Ravens team is they are not afraid to just try things out. They are not afraid to just swing and miss when it's not in a risky situation, right? If you're up 6-0 in the ninth, they are going to swing at every single pitch, and you may not have a great batting average, but you're at least taking a shot. And I think that's what the Ravens do a lot. And I think bringing in a guy like Diego Pavia really epitomizes that. And you're not relying on him to be a big piece long-term, but look, if he could show any signs of what he was in college and maybe fix some of those character concerns that teams may have had, I'm not in those meetings. I haven't met him personally. And, that could be golden as a QB3. But I also think that Joe Fagnano, I actually think he will become the QB3, and I think he's a better fit to be the QB3 because I think he's a little bit more quarterback and NFL ready to be a backup quarterback in this league. A little bit of a bigger frame. I think a frame that more caters to NFL systems than a guy who's 5'8" and, can't really provide as much of a value there in Diego Pavia. But you're looking at a guy in Fagnano that threw 28 touchdowns last year and 1 interception. I repeat, 1 interception the entire season at UConn, and it was a tipped pass off of his receiver's hands. And I think what you want is a guy like Joe Fagnano who took care of the football, worked really, really well with Skylar Bell last year, a guy who many compare to Zay Flowers. And then he also worked in a system at UConn that I think will be somewhat loosely similar to what the Ravens are going to run, which is you're going to have a heavy runner up the gut. You're going to have some, guys who can play in the slot, but then also you are going to have an offense that is, depends on the read option, that depends on dropping back and making plays down the field. And I think Fagnano can have a seamless transition into the National Football League. And look, again, he's not as big a name as Pavia, but I'd argue he is a safer bet to be your QB3. I think if you had to make a bet on who is more likely to have the potential and the opportunity to be a star NFL quarterback, you'd probably rather put your money on Diego Pavia than Joe Fagnano because he has the intangibles of if they do work out, it's a star. It's a safer bet with Joe Fagnano. But again, for your QB3, you don't want your playmaker. I don't think you want your QB3 to be a hero. You just don't want him to be a villain. You don't need your QB3 to make a game. You just need him not to break the game. And that's what Fagnano won't do. He takes care of the football. He has an extremely IQ. high IQ, and he comes into the National Football League with 7 years of collegiate experience at 25 years old. So I think he honestly may even be a better fit to be the QB3 over Diego Pavia. Either way, I'm excited to see this QB battle really come to fruition. Again, it's not going to be taped or anything, but I am curious to see what Baltimore does see. If either of them make it to, I assume one of them will, but which one of them makes it to training camp? Maybe they both make it to training camp and continue to battle it out there. But either way, I think they both earned a chance to compete. And while everyone is talking about Diego Pavia, I do want to bring up Joe Fagnano because I was someone who covered UConn football living in Connecticut as a beat reporter last year. And Fagnano showed that he was a great leader, was always dependable, can hit the deep ball, can play well in the system, can take care of the football, has an extremely high IQ, plays like a veteran. Like, those are the intangibles you want out of a QB3. And so I'm excited to see this QB3 battle take place. And I am kind of curious to see how this whole thing does play out in Baltimore during their rookie minicamp.